June 15, 1944. Iwo Jima Air Defense Command, Central Pacific. The early dawn haze lingers over the volcanic ridge, painting the sea in shades of gray and rust. Inside a reinforced bunker, Captain Masaru Kato of the Imperial Japanese Army Air Service adjusts his binoculars and peers through the narrow slit toward the distant horizon. The air raid sirens begin to wail, a rising, mechanical scream that echoes through the humid morning air. Multiple blips on the scope. A radar operator calls out. His voice trembles. "They're higher than usual, sir. 30,000 feet, maybe more." Kato freezes. 30,000? That's beyond the reach of any Ki-43 or Ki-44 fighter under his command. The ceiling of their best interceptors barely touches 29,000 feet, and that's under ideal conditions, with stripped-down weight and oxygen masks that freeze solid in the thin air. Moments later, black dots glint in the rising sun. Then, the unmistakable glimmer of aluminum, a vast formation moving in perfect, disciplined rhythm. The sound arrives last, a deep, distant hum like thunder trapped in the clouds. The Boeing B-29 Superfortress has arrived. Below, Japanese spotters scramble to relay positions. Pilots sprint toward their aircraft, pulling on flight suits, shouting orders, and cursing the humidity. The ground crews, exhausted from months of relentless raids, refuel and arm the Nakajima Ki-84. Hate, the few that still are UN.AS. Kato climbs into his command post, he mutters. "They look like silver whales, drifting in the sky." Moments later, the anti-aircraft batteries open up. Black puffs of shrapnel bloom in the upper atmosphere, exploding in futile bursts that never seem to reach their targets. Inside one of those silver giants, call sign Victor 91, 497th Bomb Group, Captain Robert "Bobby" Heller adjusts his oxygen mask and glances at his altimeter, 30,200 feet. The B-29 hums smoothly, for right are 3350 engines roaring like mechanical lions. Bomb bay doors open. His bombardier calls out. "Roger that." Heller replies, steady and calm, though sweat beads under his flight goggles. "Let's give them something to remember." A dull clank, a whistle, then the long silence before destruction. Down below, Kato's men hear it before they see it, a low rushing sound that swells into a roar. Then, in the heart of the city of Yalta, the ground erupts. Fire, dust, and shrapnel blossom upward like a terrible flower. For the first time, Japan's mainland burns under the shadow of the B-29. And the men ordered to defend it can only watch, helplessly, as the bombers turn east and vanish into the rising sun, untouchable gods above the clouds. Kato lowers his binoculars. "If this is America's new weapon," he mutters, "then we are already ghosts." July 7, 1944. Yanten Airfield, Okinawa. The morning air is heavy with the scent of fuel and rust. Ground crews move like ants beneath a line of aging Ki-44 Tojo fighters, their wings patched with canvas, their guns overheating even before takeoff. Lieutenant Hiroshi Tanaka, 23 years old, tightens his oxygen mask and checks the altimeter of his aircraft. The needle stops at 29,000 feet, the absolute limit. Beyond that, the Tojo's engine gasps for air. "Remember," the flight commander shouts over the engine noise. "Climb fast, strike once, and dive away. They're too high for a sustained fight." Tanaka nods but says nothing. He has already seen the B-29s. They are not planes, he thinks, they are moving fortresses. Each one bristling with 12.50 caliber Browning machine guns, each crew trained to fight at an altitude where Japanese blood freezes and engines suffocate. Minutes later, Tanaka and his squadron of 6 fighters roar into the sky, leaving trails of smoke as they climb, higher, higher, until the world below becomes a watercolor blur of blue and gray. "Target sighted." His wingman's voice crackles through the radio. 6 o'clock high, 3 formations. Tanaka squints. The B-29s gleam like silver islands against the deep blue of the stratosphere. He pushes his throttle to the limit, the needle trembling near redline. His canopy frosts over, and his breath turns to ice. Too high, engine losing power, another pilot yells, then over the radio. Stay with them. Stay. The voice cuts off in static. Tanaka finally reaches them, barely. He squeezes his trigger, the key 44 shuddering as its 12.7mm guns spit fire. Tracers arc upward, uselessly fading before reaching their mark. The bombers are simply out of range. From Victor 91, Sergeant Hank Porter in the top turret spots the tiny specks climbing desperately below. Enemy fighters, 7 o'clock low. Hold formation. Captain Heller orders. They can't touch us here. Porter chuckles grimly. They sure look like they're trying. The gunner watches as one Tojo tries to dive, engine sputtering, wings trembling under strain. It tumbles into a spiral of vapor and smoke before disappearing through the cloud deck. Tanaka feels the airframe rattle apart. He levels off, gasping, his instruments dead. He's barely alive. They're too high, he whispers to himself. Impossible. Down below, the air defense commanders record the altitudes, speeds, and patterns. The conclusion shocks them. The Americans are bombing from altitudes Japan cannot reach. In Tokyo, the Imperial General Staff gathers in silence as reports come in from every front. The B-29s, based in the Mariana Islands, can now reach the Japanese home islands with ease. General Hideki Tojo himself reads the intelligence summary with disbelief. 30,000 feet? He mutters. Then what are we supposed to use, bows and arrows? Even his aides do not laugh. Outside the city, civilians watch in awe and terror as white contrails crisscross the sky, massive, silent lines that glow against the sun. Children point at them, not yet realizing what they mean. Each streak in the heavens marks another city soon to burn. As night falls, Lieutenant Tanaka lands his crippled Ki 44 back at Yantan, canopy cracked, fuel nearly gone. He steps onto the tarmac, dizzy from hypoxia, and stares upward. The stars are cold and still. Somewhere up there, the Americans are already on their way home, untouched. Tanaka removes his flight cap, sweat freezing in his hair. If the gods live above the clouds, he says softly, then they must be flying B-29s. November 24, 1944. Saipan, Mariana Islands. The tropical rain has passed, leaving the air damp and heavy with the scent of oil, salt, and burnt rubber. On a runway carved from coral and sweat, the U.S. Army Air Forces prepare for Operation San Antonio I, the first bombing raid on Tokyo since the Doolittle raid of 1942. Colonel Emmett Rosie O'Donnell, commanding officer of the 73rd Bomb Wing, walks the flight line under the rising sun. Before him, 96 Boeing B-29 Super Fortresses wait like silver predators, their fuselages glimmering under the Pacific light. Each bears the emblem of a unit, a roaring tiger, a falling bomb, a painted pin-up girl promising death from above. Mechanics crawl across wings, tightening bolts, checking pressure lines, adjusting the right R-3350 engines that have been temperamental since the first prototypes. At the edge of the runway, a young gunner named Corporal Samuel Red Duncan wipes his goggles and glances toward the horizon. Tokyo, he whispers. Never thought I'd see the day. By 7 a.m., engines roar to life in unison, their vibrations shaking the coral beneath the men's boots. The air tastes of fuel and salt as O'Donnell's voice crackles over the intercom. Gentlemen, today we write history. Let's show them what 30,000 feet looks like. One by one, the B-29s thunder down the strip, wheels lifting free of the earth. Their shadows pass over the jungle and out to sea, toward Japan, 6 hours away. That same morning, Tokyo, 11:30 a.m. Lieutenant Commander Shiro Kawamura of the 10th Air Division stands on the observation platform of the Imperial General Headquarters. He peers through his field glasses toward the west, where faint contrails scar the blue sky. At first, he thinks they are clouds. Then his aide calls out, "Sir, our radar stations in Nagoya confirm high-altitude formations approaching Honshu. Altitude, Over 30,000 feet. Kawamura lowers the binoculars. He cannot believe it. From where? Saipan, sir. We think. Saipan. The realization chills him. That's nearly 1,500 miles away, a distance no previous American bomber could cover, much less at such an altitude. Sirens begin to scream across Tokyo. People pour into the streets, shielding their eyes as silver dots appear high above the city. So high they seem almost motionless, untouchable, silent. Kawamura watches as tiny black specks fall from their bellies. Seconds later, the horizon blossoms with fire. The B-29's 500-pound bombs crash into the Musashino aircraft factory, the largest in Japan, sending flames hundreds of feet into the air. Get our interceptors up there, he shouts into the phone. All available fighters! Moments later, squadrons of Ki-44s and Ki-84s scramble from nearby airfields. But by the time they reach 28,000 feet, their engines strain and cough. Oxygen systems freeze. Guns jam. From the cockpit of one B-29, Captain Heller peers down through the clouds at the burning city below. Bombs away, he murmurs, voice tight. God forgive us. His co-pilot, Lieutenant McIntyre, leans forward. They can't touch us, Skipper. Not yet, Heller replies quietly. But give them time. They'll try. That night, the fires of Tokyo can be seen from 100 miles away. The raid destroys Musashino's main assembly line, but also kills hundreds of civilians living nearby. And the shattered remains of the district. Kawamura walks through the rubble, smoke swirling around him. He passes the twisted frame of a Nakajima fighter half-built, half-melted. The workers who once assembled Japan's future now lie buried beneath it. He stops, staring up into the dark sky, where faint streaks of vapor still hang. How do you fight an enemy you can't even reach? He whispers. Behind him, a staff officer approaches, hesitant. Sir, the men, they say these bombers are invincible. Kawamura exhales, slow and weary. No machine is invincible. But this one, he says, was built by a nation that believes it can fly higher than fate itself. He looks once more toward the west, toward Saipan, Tinian, Guam, where more of those silver fortresses are surely being fueled and armed at that very moment. The war has climbed into the heavens, and Japan is still fighting on the ground. March 9, 1945. Tokyo Bay. Midnight. A cold wind sweeps across the harbor, carrying the faint scent of smoke from previous raids. Over the water, the night sky flickers with lightning, but it isn't a storm. It's the glow of exhaust flames from hundreds of B-29 superfortresses, slicing silently through the darkness. And his command ship off the coast, Major General Curtis LeMay stares through binoculars, his jaw set hard. Behind him, the operations map glows red with targets. He's changed the plan. No more high-altitude precision. Tonight they'll fly low, below the jet stream, under 10,000 feet, and they'll drop incendiaries, not bombs. Altitude 8,000 feet. Load napalm and magnesium clusters. An aide confirms. LeMay nods once. We're going to burn the heart out of Tokyo, he says flatly, and end this war. Above Tokyo, 12:02 a.m. Captain Robert Heller's Victor 91 drones through the moonless sky. Below, a city of wood and paper sleeps uneasily. Skipper, we're at 8,000. The navigator calls. Heller adjusts the throttle. The air is smooth, too smooth. They won't expect us this low, he mutters. Radar's clear, says Sergeant Porter from the tail turret. Can't see a damn thing but darkness. Just hold on, Heller says. You'll see it soon enough. Moments later, the first wave begins its run. The lead bomber, Little Jim, drops its load, a carpet of M69 incendiary bomblets. The canisters burst midair, scattering flaming liquid that clings to everything it touches. Within minutes, Tokyo ignites. The flames spread faster than anyone imagined, leaping across rivers, swallowing entire blocks. The firestorm grows so intense that it creates its own wind, sucking oxygen into the inferno with the force of a hurricane. From the sky, the city becomes a living torch. Streets twist in molten light. Smoke towers 30,000 feet high, brushing the very altitudes the Japanese once thought unreachable. In Victor 91, Heller grips the yoke as turbulence rocks the aircraft. Jesus, look at that! Porter's voice cracks. It's held down there. Through the glass, they can see people running, tiny specks caught in the glow, vanishing beneath waves of flame. Bombs away, Heller whispers. Let's go home. He turns the B-29 eastward, engines straining against the heat rising from below. The sky glows red even as they climb. Below, in the burning city, Lieutenant Commander Shiro Kawamura stumbles through the chaos, face blackened with soot. He can hardly breathe. The wind howls, tearing at his uniform. All around him, Tokyo dissolves in fire. He had been in an air raid shelter when the first wave hit. Now he drags survivors from the wreckage of a collapsed streetcar station. Above the roar of the flames, the shriek of women and children pierces the night. He looks up and sees them. Tiny black silhouettes moving across the orange sky, wings gleaming faintly in the firelight. They are flying low this time, bold and unchallenged. B-29s. Someone gasps beside him. Kawamura's voice trembles. They used to fly too high. Now they don't need to. A child clings to his leg, sobbing. The sky is burning. He looks around. She's right. The air itself glows. Even the rivers are on fire, coated in burning fuel. For the first time in his career, Kawamura feels true despair, not for himself, but for his country. Japan's proud capital has become an inferno. 8:03 a.m. Over the Pacific. LeMay receives word from the returning bombers. Tokyo is gone. The numbers will take weeks to confirm. Over 100,000 dead, 1 million homeless. It's the single most destructive air raid in human history. Yet to the Americans, it's a grim victory. Sir, a young officer says, we hit everything we aimed for. LeMay nods, though there's no triumph in his eyes. That's the problem. He murmurs. He turns toward the sea, where the faint glow of Tokyo still stains the horizon. The B-29 has done what no other weapon could, conquer distance, altitude, and even mercy. And in that moment, both sides know, the war has changed forever. Back in Japan, dawn. Smoke still rises from the capital. Lieutenant Tanaka, the young pilot from Okinawa, returns to a city that barely exists. He stands on a bridge overlooking the Sumida River, now black with ash and bodies. He sees a fragment of aluminum half buried in the mud, a torn panel from a B-29, its serial number still visible. He touches it with a trembling hand. They're not gods, he whispers. Just men, who fly higher than we can reach. He looks up at the empty sky. Somewhere beyond it, more bombers are forming up over Saipan, their engines already turning. The sound of war has moved beyond hearing, beyond reach, and Japan can only wait for the next wave of thunder from above. April 1945. Tachikawa Airfield, west of Tokyo. The once proud base lies in ruin. Hangars are shredded, craters pockmark the runway, and the skeletons of burned-out Ki-61 Hien fighters litter the tarmac. Yet, amid the wreckage, a handful of mechanics still work in silence, tightening bolts and scavenging parts from wrecked planes. Captain Masaru Kato, his face older, thinner, his eyes shadowed, walks past them. Once commander of Iwo Jima's air defense, he has been reassigned to what the Imperial High Command now calls the Ketsugo Plan, the final defense of the homeland. But as he steps into the command hut, he already knows the truth. There is no defense left. Inside, a chalkboard lists the remaining aircraft: 9 Ki-84s, 3 Ki-61s, 1 prototype Shiden-Kai. Fuel for only 2 missions. The senior officer, Colonel Minoru Genda, leans over a map. The Americans have taken Iwo Jima. Their B-29s now launch from there, and their fighters escort them all the way to Tokyo. There's no altitude advantage anymore. Kato nods grimly. We can't climb high enough. We can't fly far enough. Genda looks up. Then we strike differently. He opens a folder stamped Tokubetsu Kogekitai. The new Special Attack Units. Kamikaze. Kato's throat tightens. You mean? Yes, Genda replies softly. If we can't reach their bombers, we'll reach their ships. The B-29s may rule the skies, but their fuel, their parts, their courage all come from the sea. Outside, a group of young pilots in crisp new uniforms laugh quietly among themselves. None of them look older than 20. They pose for photographs beside their aircraft, cherry blossoms falling gently over their shoulders. Kato watches them through the window. He knows many will be dead before the petals reach the ground. Meanwhile, 30,000 feet above Japan, Captain Heller's Victor 91 flies its 23rd mission. The crew is silent. The excitement that once came with each bombing run has faded into something colder, heavier. Approaching Nagoya, the navigator says. Target Mitsubishi Aircraft Works. Roger that, Heller answers. Below them, the sky is unnaturally clear. No contrails of interceptors. No flak bursts. Only the endless sprawl of Japan's cities, gray by day, glowing red by night. Sergeant Porter peers through the gun sight. Skipper, we're bombing ghosts. Just do your job, Heller says quietly. The bombs fall. The city burns. Another plume joins the horizon. Then, suddenly, movement. Fighter! 2 o'clock low. The gunner swings his turret. A Ki-84 Frank screams upward, its engine coughing, guns blazing. Tracers whip past the B-29's wing. The American formation tightens instantly, a mechanical ballet of death. Porter squeezes the trigger. The turret rattles with fury. Got him! He's smoking! He's hit! The Japanese fighter dives away, trailing fire, spinning down through the clouds. Inside Victor 91, no one cheers. Heller just exhales. Another kid who thought he could reach us. He doesn't say what he's thinking, that the boy probably knew he couldn't. That night, Imperial General Headquarters, Tokyo. The War Council convenes under candlelight. The city still smolders beyond the windows. General Anami, grim-faced, reads a telegram aloud. Our scientists confirm, the enemy's bombers are unstoppable at current altitude and speed. No aircraft in our arsenal can intercept. Suggests focusing all resources on suicide interceptors and ground-to-air rockets. Silence follows. Then a younger officer blurts out. If we cannot match their altitude, why not build something that can? A weary engineer from Nakajima stands. We tried, he says. The Kika, the jet project. But it's too late. No fuel, no aluminum. The B-29s destroyed the factories before we could finish. The room falls silent again. General Anami closes his eyes. Then Japan will fight with spirit alone. Someone mutters. Spirit cannot reach 30,000 feet. June 1st, 1945. Over Osaka, the last surviving interceptor squadron takes off. 6 aircraft, stripped to the frame, fueled with alcohol mixed from sake distilleries. Among them is Lieutenant Tanaka. He hasn't flown since the Great Tokyo Raid. His orders tonight: intercept and destroy any B-29 sighted over Kansai. He climbs into the darkness, the needle trembling near red line. The air thins, the engine whines, frost creeps across his visor. He presses on. Above, faintly glowing in the distance, he sees them. Dozens of silver wings gliding across the moonlight. He pushes his throttle, screaming at the machine. Just a little higher! But the engine dies. His Ki-84 stalls, gasps, and falls into a spiral. He closes his eyes. Below, Osaka burns. Above, the B-29s pass unopposed, silent giants of the stratosphere. When Tanaka awakens, his plane has crashed into a rice field. He's alive by chance, bruised, broken, but alive. He crawls from the wreckage and looks upward through the smoke. the bombers are gone. Only their contrails remain, drifting like white scars across the sky. He whispers to the empty air. They fly in a world we were never meant to see. Far away on Tinian Island, the next phase of the war begins. 2 specially modified B-29s sit in hangars, their crews under strict guard. Their names are painted in black on the fuselage, Enola Gay and Boxcar. Even among the men who fly the superfortress, there's a sense that something new, and far more terrible, is coming. The sky that once symbolized Japan's strength has become the stage for its destruction. August 6, 1945. Hiroshima, Japan. 8:15 am. Blue, cloudless morning. Cicadas hum in the trees along the Ota River. Children make their way to school. Office clerks gather around tea kettles, reading the morning paper about air raids far away in other cities. Above them, so high it seems part of the sky, a lone silver aircraft glides silently east to west. From the ground, it looks like any other B-29. Few people even look up anymore. They'd become a familiar, terrible sight. No alarms sound. No fighters scramble. Inside that aircraft, Colonel Paul Tibbets, commander of the 509th Composite Group, adjusts his oxygen mask and speaks quietly into the intercom. This is it, boys. Stand by for the run. The Enola Gay levels off at 31,000 feet. The bomb bay doors open. Below, the city continues its routine. A train whistles. A school bell rings. Bombardier Thomas Farabee sights through the Norden bomb sight and calls out, "Target in view." At precisely 8 hours 15 minutes and 17 seconds, he flips a switch. A single bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, drops away, tumbling slowly, spinning toward the city. 43 seconds later, the world changes. A flash, brighter than the sun, swallows everything. The shockwave rips outward, flattening buildings, bridges, and people in a radius of miles. The temperature near ground zero reaches over 3,000 degrees C. From 31,000 feet, Tibbets and his crew turn hard left, banking away. The cockpit glows from the blinding light below. "My God!" whispers tail gunner George Caron. "What have we done?" Behind them, a mushroom cloud begins to rise, silent at first, then roaring with the fury of 1,000 storms. It climbs past 10,000 feet, 20, 30, higher than the bomber itself. Heller's Victor 91, now based on Guam, receives the coded radio report hours later. Special mission successful. Target destroyed. The crew gathers around the transmitter, silent. None of them fully understand. But they sense it. Something has shifted. The war that began with fire from the sky may now end with light that erases cities. 3 days later, August 9th, Nagasaki. The second mission. The second dawn, Captain Charles Sweeney flies Boxcar, carrying the plutonium bomb. Fat Man mechanical problems, fuel miscalculations, cloud cover, everything that could go wrong, does. Yet the mission proceeds. At 11:02 a.m., through a break in the clouds, they find their target. Another flash. Another city consumed. Back in Tokyo, Lieutenant Commander Shiro Kawamura, his face lined and hollow, stands before a cracked radio receiver. The voice of Emperor Hirohito echoes through static, his tone calm, sorrowful, inhumanly composed. "The enemy has begun to employ a new and most cruel bomb. Should we continue to fight, it would not only result in the ultimate collapse of our nation, but also the destruction of human civilization." Kawamura lowers his head. Around him, officers weep in silence. The unthinkable has happened. For months, they fought to reach the B-29s, to strike back, to pull them down from the heavens. Now, those same bombers have delivered something no fighter, no spirit, no emperor can withstand. Japan surrenders. August 15, 1945. Over the Pacific, Captain Robert Heller flies his final mission, not one of destruction, but of mercy. His crew drops food and medical supplies over POW camps in Japan and China. From the window, Heller looks down at the burned remains of the empire he once bombed. Cities flattened, rivers turned black, entire neighborhoods erased. Sergeant Porter breaks the silence. So this is what victory looks like. Heller doesn't answer. He just watches the land drift below, the same land that once terrified the world, now silent and broken. We flew higher than anyone ever had, he says finally. But I wonder if we ever looked down far enough. The superfortress glides eastward toward the sunrise, engines humming. In the years that follow, the B-29 becomes the symbol of a new era, of technology that could reach beyond the sky, and of destruction that no one can truly comprehend. Japan rebuilds from ashes, its cities reborn in steel and neon. But for the generation that watched the silver giants glide across the heavens, the sound of distant engines will forever carry a shadow. Lieutenant Tanaka, now an old man, stands one evening at Haneda Airport. Jetliners roar above him, their lights bright against the dusk. He looks up, remembering the contrails of his youth, the unreachable ghosts that once burned his homeland. They were magnificent, he whispers, and terrible. He closes his eyes as a modern plane climbs toward 30,000 feet, disappearing into the clouds, the same height where gods once flew.